What's today's hot topic?
Well, actually, I clipped together two videos that I thought you might enjoy. They came across my TikTok timeline, and this is like I don't know how much you get on TikTok, but a lot of times you'll have somebody make a video, it'll go super viral, and then you'll go to their page to see like the follow-up. So this guy made a video about Spirit Airlines. So let's watch the video and talk about it because I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
I have seen this video before. This is not a scroll patrol, but let's watch it.
Okay, I had a genius idea. Spirit Airlines just went bankrupt, right? I'm the guy that flew Spirit Airlines for 24 hours straight. There's more than 250 million individuals over the age of 18 in the United States. Now, if we took only 20% of them and paid basically the average fare of a Spirit Airlines flight, which is somewhere around $30 to $40, we could buy Spirit Airlines. This is a genius idea. We nationalize Spirit Airlines, owned by the people. Airlines gone. We make a new airline. Let's buy an airline. I should make a Venmo for this. Okay, so it's been about 2.5 hours, and y'all are really interested in all of us buying Spirit Airlines. So I made a website. It's called letsbuyspirit.com. Register your intent. I won't take any money. We're not going to use the Venmo anymore. That was kind of a joke. And we're going to try and, I guess, buy Spirit Airlines. Let's do this. You, me, I'm kind of autistic, and I really like airplanes. So vote for me as CEO. Are we actually doing this?
That
All
sounds like
right.
something you would do.
That was a very, I mean, yeah, he's a fellow influencer, if that's what our content
Uh-huh.
creator.
He's funny.
Yeah, that was a very hype video, and it had very like uplifting music, and he kind of, it's one of these like borderline finance videos where he kind of like starts multiplying numbers together real fast and kind of gives this air of credibility,
Yeah.
and then he's like very excited, and he says, "Oh, this thing's blowing up." It's like got 50,000 views, which like in by TikTok, Instagram real standard is very few. I mean, obviously some people here like would be happy to get 1,000 views on a video, which is great, but like
Right.
50,000 views ain't like by spirit kind of
Right.
grassroots effort, right? And so, you know, Spirit shut down. I'm sure everyone knows that by this point, but I kind of want to talk about this idea because it is kind of a funny idea, and and it seems like, could we do this? And first of all, he's like, this is like classic entrepreneur math. There's 250 million people over 18 in the U.S. If we just get 20%, I'm like, just 20%, getting 1 out of 5 Americans to all give you 30 or $40. That's like, actually, I did the math. That's 1.5 to $2 billion. If you can
Right.
get 20% of Americans to give you $30, you'll have one of the most fabulously successful companies in the country. So you can't just do that with a 50,000 view TikTok reel where people are like laughing along. So first of all, it'd be very, very, very hard to raise that money. Let's give him credit for actually being able to raise the 1.5 to $2 billion. What would actually happen? So I think this video is like, oh, we'll just own an airline. And he kind of said, we'll nationalize it, which nationalizing something means the government owns it, I think. He really means the public is owning it, which kind of what was already happening. It already was a publicly traded company. The public already did own it. And the problem
Mhm.
was exactly this, which is the airline wasn't making money. And we actually know a lot of this because in 2024 they declared bankruptcy and gave like an extremely detailed accounting of their finances. And they're saying, hey, this is our problem, and declaring bankruptcy is like one step towards what happened, which is ceasing operations. You can sometimes declare bankruptcy and say, hey, we can't pay our debts anymore. Help us, legally restructure that debt, pay them back on a different schedule, less money, whatever it is, so we can keep operating. So hopefully they're left with something rather than nothing. But it finally got to a point recently where they just ceased operations altogether. And now if you show up at the airport with a Spirit ticket, you have nothing. By the way, also, I've heard some people complain that they had Spirit like flight credits, and they also are going to get nothing from that. You got burned. Sorry. But
Yikes.
so like, let's say the guy got his $2 billion. He bought Spirit. In 2024, their net revenue was $4.9 billion. That means they sold essentially $4.9 billion worth of tickets, which is great. Unfortunately, their expenses were more than that. In fact, their net profit after all of their expenses was negative. They had a net loss of $1.23 billion. That
Yikes.
means just to have a day of running Spirit Airlines, selling tickets, working the counter, baggage claim, flying the planes, paying their debts, doing everything that Spirit Airlines does to like get through a day, they were losing $3.4 million a day. So
Whoa.
if we as a group got together and like bought this like distressed airline, in order for it to do something like fly planes around, we would be losing $3 million a day. Thus, this entire problem that Spirit Airlines was in, which is why they stopped operating, which is they can't keep losing money indefinitely or else they have to stop. So first of all, that's the big problem, right? You're losing money. Let's look at some other issues. The purchase price. He said, $1.5 to $2 billion based on the math, but you could actually probably get it for cheaper because I don't know like where his number came from, but these distressed companies that are in bankruptcy or have ceased operations, you can kind of buy them for pennies on the dollar because they're not profitable. And you sometimes pay like a fraction of what the revenue was. You pay for their like book value, like the value of all of their stuff they have. But best estimates, I could say maybe you could buy Spirit Airlines today for about $700 million because they have some things of value. So for example, what you might get if you bought them. So by the way, to his credit, if you have 1.5 billion, 700 million is about half of that. So he would have 700 million left over, which would be some very necessary working capital to get things going. But if you bought Spirit Airlines, you would get the FAA operating certificate, which is good. To start operating a new airline in the US is difficult. You have to prove to the government that you are, certified and have pilots. And I don't know anything about flights, so don't hold me to all this, but it takes years and it's very expensive to get that. So that would be a good thing. You'd also get all of your airport gates and slots, all those different gates that are reserved for Spirit Airlines. That real estate is expensive, and other airlines would maybe want those gates. So that's valuable too. You might think you're like, oh, what would we get? Like a few hundred planes? Unfortunately, no, you don't, because Spirit Airlines didn't own the planes. Most airlines actually leased the planes. And so they're renting their planes. And so that $3 million a day they're losing, part of that cost is in plane rentals. And when you buy the company, the lessor, the people giving you the planes, are going to want their payments because they didn't sell it to you 3 years ago, and now you're buying the paid for planes. You're just buying the obligation to keep paying it back. So that's rough. 1 month of expenses for Spirit Airline includes fuel, $98 million. This is again from their bankruptcy filing in 2024. Salaries, you have to pay for pilots, flight attendants, gate agents, mechanics, baggage workers, food suppliers, customer service, etc. That costs $138 million per month. Landing fees, when you like land in an airport, you have to pay the airport to like run, pay their air traffic controllers and pave their runway and, build the airport and everything. That's $38 million a month. Aircraft rent, we just talked about, $52 million a month. Maintenance, you got to maintain all these aircraft, $18 million a month. Ticketing overhead, this is things like credit card fees, travel agency commissions. So if you book a flight through Expedia or Google Flights or whatever it is, like Spirit's got to pay those websites to like send you their customers. Other marketing costs, all those ads you see, that's $34 million per month. Add all that up, that's $15 million per day. And so when I say they're losing $3 million a day, the problem is they're only selling $12 million a day worth of tickets, but they're spending $15 million a day to do all that stuff to keep the business running. And so, buying Spirit Airlines, what you would get was this like, this money pit that's dissolving. And so that's why they're in so much trouble. Plus, if you actually wanted planes to fly again, you need a lot of cash. Airlines typically need 3 to 6 months of liquid cash to make sure that airports know that they can cover their bills and workers know their salaries going to be covered and the landing fees are covered and the rent's covered, blah, blah, blah. And so that's another $1.8 billion of cash you need. And so basically, this is like the Jeremy No Fun party, but as cool as it would be if we all owned an airline, you would really have a mess on your hands. And he used the word nationalized, but it wasn't nationalized. Kind of implies the government owns it, and then we all get to use it for free or something, and other, net of our taxes. But he was really saying, hey, if individuals all chipped in money, but we already have that system. It's called the stock market, and you can go buy a share of Delta stock. I'm going to go Google it right now. What does a share of Delta stock cost right now? Delta stock. It is $72.92 a share, about the cost of the cheapest one-way Delta flight. So you can go buy a share of Delta stock and you'll be a share of owner of Delta. The problem is, I think he's implying if we all own it together, then we get to fly for free or something. But that's not true because
Right.
you still have to cover the fuel and the salaries and the landing fees and the aircraft rent and the maintenance and the ticketing overhead and the workers, blah, blah, blah. And so, just because I own a share of Delta stock doesn't mean I get to fly Delta for free. Just because we all buy the assets of Spirit Airlines doesn't mean we get to fly for free. There are still these realities of the expenses to run an entire business that will still be true even if we own it. And so if you want to be an owner of a company, like he's suggesting, don't buy Spirit. Spirit's dead. Spirit didn't work. The make your customers hate you and guarantee they'll never fly with you again business model didn't work. I think making your customers like you is probably a better business model if you're out there and an aspiring entrepreneur. But if you want to be a part owner of an airline, go buy a share of Delta stock for, as of today, $73. And unfortunately, that doesn't really give you much other than the ability to sell it to someone later and collect any profits that they pay out in the form of dividends, which actually these days are 19 cents per quarter. So you can make about 80 cents a year off of your $73 investment. On its one share by itself doesn't sound that impressive, but if you buy a lot of shares and maybe even shares in a lot of companies in a convenient package called an index fund, you knew I was going to bring this back to index funds, Jen.
I knew you were gonna. I just knew
you don't need to go do this crackpot Spirit thing. You can just buy an index fund, then you do own all the airlines and you get dividends. How great.
He had me fooled, this influencer, with that music. He played the music that you hear in like a war movie as the troops are getting ready to go out. I was feeling energized, but you really broke it down in a way that makes me feel like maybe we shouldn't buy Spirit Airlines.
Do not Venmo. It sounds like that guy was like getting some Venmos and everyone's like,
right.
Like, this is not how you invest in companies. Do not Venmo some random dude that got 50,000 views. I don't know, I'm mocking his 50,000. 50,000 is a lot of views. It ain't enough to buy Spirit Airlines or any airline.
Just Venmoing a guy $30.
Just Venmo. Okay, do I own Spirit yet? When do I get on my flight? I'm like, nope, that's not going to work. And I feel for people who want that, because I do too. You want to own an airplane, you want free flights. Like, the thing is, like, just you have to balance that desire with like reality and
mm-hmm.
ticket agents and airport fees and fuel and airplane leases and yada, yada, yada. Like, that doesn't just go away. You still have to like do it for real. And so if you want to start an airline, I'd probably start smaller and maybe figure out if there is like 2 cities that don't have great connections and like lease one plane and connect those 2 cities. Or, I don't know.
Now that you broke down the operating costs, I don't want to own the airline. It sounds terrible. It sounds like a lot of money.
I think airlines are one of like the worst industries traditionally, like historically, in terms of like profitability. Like they're barely profitable. Like, most of them lose money. They keep getting propped up by like governments and investors because like air travel is like this magnificent like miracle of modern technology, but it's like not a good business. It's not a good business.
Sounds terrible.
So
like,
let's not buy
like people
Spirit,
like
guys.
Everybody has a food truck now. I'm like, they're like, don't do a brick and mortar restaurant. They're just money pits. I'm like, airline sounds like the worst of all of that.
No, it's true. I think part of being a good entrepreneur is just not knowing what you're getting into. Because if you really know like the ugly side of any business, it probably looks really, really ugly. But yeah, this is especially ugly. Especially buying an already failed airline. If the experts who've been doing it for 20 years can't get it to work, I doubt that like all of us, led by the dude that flew Spirit for 24 hours in a row, like, that makes him he's like, vote for me for CEO. I think he's joking, by the way. Like, that's not how any of this works. But but apparently people were Venmoing him real money. So
it's crazy. I know. And it's like, if you are going to buy an airline, don't let it be Spirit. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Let's go buy British Airways or some cool international sounding airline.
For sure.